They laughed. Not with you, but at you. At the empty resume. At the birthdays that passed quietly. At the years you didn't post updates about success. They said you missed the train. That if you weren't early, you'd never arrive. And maybe for a while, you believed them. You carried the shame until it hardened inside you. But listen, this is not a story of pity. This is a warning. Here's what they never learned. The longer the fuse, the bigger the explosion. Those who win early usually sprint, desperate to be seen. But those who start late, they learn to see differently. They study, they observe, they wait until the illusions fade, then they move. Late doesn't mean weak. It means you arrive after the noise is gone. You don't build for applause. You build for pressure, for endurance. You don't beg for doors to open. You find another way in. You learn to pick the lock that no one else noticed. And when that door finally swings wide, the whole room belongs to you. Look at your phone, scroll through the highlights. Viral videos today, forgotten tomorrow. Shiny, fast, hollow, fragile. That's not success, that's just a countdown clock. Napoleon Hill warned us about this. Habit becomes law. Repeat a thought enough times and it becomes the air you breathe. The world inhaled the lie. Too late. Now you're about to exhale the truth. Starting late gives you unfair advantages. 3 of them, actually. First, selection. You choose better games. Second, clarity. You waste less motion. Third, immunity. You stop asking permission. That's why the quiet ones are dangerous. They don't announce. They arrive. If you're hearing this, you are not behind. You're not failing. You're loading the hourglass you once feared. Flip it. Watch the sand. Climb again. Time is not your enemy. Time is your partner if you know how to use it. The world mocked the years you spent waiting, but those years are leverage. You can turn their laughter into power. You can turn delays into foundations. Because late bloomers don't collapse. They are unshakable. There's a lie so common, so often repeated, that almost everyone believes it. It whispers, "You should have figured it out by now. You're too old. That ship has sailed." You hear it in casual comments, in the way people tilt their head when you say you're still figuring things out, in the smirk that follows. He's still chasing that? It's everywhere, in headlines and startup pitches and casting calls. The message, if you haven't succeeded by 30, you're late. And if you're over 40, still dreaming, still evolving. The world calls that delusion. But pause. Who taught us that? Who decided life peaks when we're young? Who decided our best ideas, our greatest gifts must appear before our brains are even fully mature? It's not biology. It's branding. Hollywood sells youth because it sells tickets. Tech glorifies youth because it sells the fantasy of the 19-year-old billionaire. Schools push youth because it keeps the achievement treadmill spinning. It's not truth, it's profit, and we bought it. When you're young, you believe hype equals greatness. You believe speed equals success. You believe if you're not sprinting, you're behind. So you run. Not to build something real, but to catch up with someone else's timeline. But that sprint was not success. It was fear. Fear of being invisible. Fear of being left behind. Social media made it worse. Instagram, TikTok, they whisper every day, "You're too late." But here's the truth. You didn't fail. You were programmed. Napoleon Hill called it the law of habit force. Repeat a thought long enough, and it becomes your inner law. The voice that says, "Too late," that's not your wisdom. That's programming. Think about youth. What does it bring? Energy, sure. Confidence, maybe. But also inexperience, fragile identity, dependence on others. The world confuses noise with value, shine with substance. That's why so many early winners flame out. Their success was built on speed, not strength. On applause, not awareness. On virality, not vision. Meanwhile, the so-called late bloomer keeps walking, keeps learning, keeps connecting the dots others burned out before they could see. And here's the paradox. Speed impresses in the short run, but wisdom dominates in the long run. That's why the world needed the lie. Because if too many people realize that patience builds real power, the system built on fear and urgency would collapse. So they branded patience as weakness. They disguised wisdom as irrelevance. And you believed them until now. Here's what's real. You're not late. You're different. You're not behind. You're building on another level. The world measures with clocks, but clocks don't measure awareness. Awareness comes only with time, scars, and silence. And that awareness is worth more than any sprint. The child star who collapses in their 30s, the influencer who goes viral then vanishes, the startup genius who burns out. That's what speed without foundation looks like. A countdown. But late bloomers, by the time they arrive, they've endured rejection, carried disappointment, survived invisibility. And that forge makes them unshakable. When you've been hardened in silence, pressure doesn't break you. It sharpens you. Resilience is not loud. It's not motivational quotes on social media. It's the quiet decision to stand up again and again until standing becomes natural. That's why late bloomers don't need every compliment. They don't chase every like. They make fewer moves, but each move hits harder. Purpose replaces performance, and purpose is stronger than applause. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming your true self. That doesn't happen in your 20s when you're still wearing masks. It happens later, when masks crack and your real self finally speaks. The young shine fast, like blades rush through the fire, but rushed blades break. A slowly forged blade, that one becomes unbreakable. That's you. History proves it. Colonel Sanders didn't build KFC until 65 after a lifetime of rejection. Vera Wang didn't design her first dress until 40 after other careers failed. Their waiting wasn't wasted time. It was incubation. Invisibility isn't failure, it's the forge. Every rejection is the hammer. Every delay, the fire. That's how you build unshakable steel. So if you feel invisible now, remember, good. Silence is the forge. Rejection is the tempering. Waiting is the weapon. Because what takes longer to build takes longer to break. Real transformation doesn't start outside. It starts inside your mind. The battlefield is not the world. It's the voice in your head. I'm too late. No one will take me seriously. There's no time left. Every time you repeat those words, you're giving commands, and your subconscious obeys. That's why people live the same year 40 times and call it a life. Not because of the lack of opportunity, but because their script never changed. Napoleon Hill taught autosuggestion. Repeat an idea long enough and it becomes law inside you. Most people do it negatively. They rehearse their failures until they believe failure is who they are. But you can flip it. Here are 3 mantras to rehearse. I am not late. I am on time. My scars are experience. My delays are depth. I am not behind. I am prepared. Say them until they stop sounding fake. Say them until they become your new law. One more truth. Environment matters. You can reprogram your mind, but if you stay in a toxic environment, you'll sink. Not because you're weak, but because environment beats willpower. Sometimes the voices holding you back aren't enemies. They're people who love you, but love you as the older version of yourself. They don't see your growth. They keep you in a box. And if you let them, their comfort becomes decay. You don't need to cut everyone off, but you do need boundaries. Not to be cruel, but to protect your future. Because becoming requires purification. You can't bloom in polluted soil. And nostalgia, be careful. Nostalgia is a quiet danger. It tricks you into clinging to who you were instead of who you're meant to be. Nostalgia whispers, go back. Remember when life was easier? But that's a ghost. A mask that once kept you safe, but now chains you down. The person you were got you here, but they can't take you further. To grow, you must bury old versions of yourself. The grief is real, but it's also the price of transformation, because your most powerful self might not even be born yet. The world worships speed, but wisdom comes slow. Civilizations collapse not from lack of innovation, but from lack of wisdom. That's why late bloomers matter. They are the voices of balance, the ones who waited, watched, and suffered in silence until their moment came. The world doesn't need more fireworks that fade. It needs fires that endure. That's the fire you carry. So if you're unseen right now, good. If they call you slow, irrelevant, good. You're not late. You're becoming. Rebuild in silence, return unrecognizable,